another thing to the Democrats. I got so much shit from you goofy asses for saying that Kamala Harris should have gone on Joe Rogan's podcast. Oh, it doesn't matter. There were interviews today of dozens of people, and I know it's anecdotal, but saying that they chose to vote for Trump after they saw him on Rogan's podcast. Even some people saying that they would have been open to voting for Kamala Harris had she been more present in the media that they consume. Democrats are so outdated. All you guys do is go on legacy media. It's just like, hi, I'm a Democrat. I'm going to campaign with this rich actor and talk to the New York Times. I know the left doesn't want to hear this because they think that everything always has to just be very serious. Okay? Gotta be serious. It's gotta just be about policy. The problem is people don't care. They vote on vibes, and the Democrats are garbage when it comes to any kind of media infrastructure. I've made videos like that before, but I'm gonna continue to say it, and I'm gonna continue to talk about it. How absurd it is that the right wing props each other up. They invest in their media. They share their media. Politicians go on the podcast shows and the bros, and they all kind of in this ecosystem that they share with the corporate media. The left has none of that. No investment in independent or online media or the podcast space. And I've been saying that, but you guys didn't want to listen because you're so outdated that you think that Pod Save America is independent media, Lamau. Oh, well, marketing and the podcast, they don't matter. Actually, it's all that matters, okay? You don't understand that Americans are shallow as fuck and that the right not only invested a lot of money in a digital media strategy, but they did targeted digital media. They invested heavily in the podcast space and in sending their surrogates and Trump into the podcast. They specifically targeted the manosphere and Latino men, and it paid off for them. The Democrats raised $1 billion, more than Trump. What'd that do for them? They spent it mostly on ads for TV, as if people are just sitting around watching TV and not on their phones and not listening to podcasts and not on social media. And sending Harry Sisson and a couple of those other Democratic operative hacks on TikTok out with no infrastructure ain't it. That doesn't mean that I'm saying policy is not incredibly important. Of course it is. But what I am saying is, if you think that propaganda and media, specifically podcasts and social media and the online space and marketing and personality and performance are not massively important to the success of a campaign, you're a fool. If you need an example of how effective and important, vital to winning elections, propaganda and marketing are and messaging, look no further than the issue of immigration. In 2020, look at the polls on how overall Americans felt about immigration. And then you fast forward to 2024 and there's all of a sudden this huge anti-immigrant sentiment in the country. Why? Now, if you ask a conservative or even an average voter why that is, they would say the border crisis, which isn't true. But they think it's true because that's what they heard. That's what they saw on social media. It's what they saw on the news, and it's what they saw on all the podcasts and online shows. And the Democratic Party, instead of countering that messaging, that anti-immigrant messaging, they fed right into it. They ceded the ground completely. You had Kamala Harris out there bragging about how she supported this incredibly right-wing hawkish border bill that James fucking Langford from Oklahoma, an insanely right-wing conservative, worked on.